I've always looked out for my younger brothers and sister. It's just what I do. There are 4 of us, me, Jackson, Naomi, and little Lee. And we're all that's left of our family. Our parents died in a plane crash when Lee was only 4. That day split our lives in half, before and after. After the funeral, they told us there was a trust fund, but we couldn't touch it until we were 18 for college. So they sent us to stay with Grandma Pearl. Moving from suburban Detroit to a dirt road outside of Hazelhurst, Mississippi was like stepping into a different world. The air was thicker, the nights louder, and everything moved slower, but Grandma's little farm was familiar. We'd spent summers there, feeding chickens and hauling watermelons from the garden. It was quiet and strange and safe in its own way. But Grandma, she had some habits. Every Sunday, like clockwork, she'd walk out a big baked chicken and toss it into the tree line behind the house. Said it was for Blackjaw the Protector. She said it with such reverence that we never questioned her, at least not out loud. "Gotta feed my Blackjaw," she'd hum, rocking in her chair. "He watches over me and my family. Been watching over all of you since you first learned to walk." I always thought it was just one of Grandma's eccentric country sayings, the kind of thing folks chalk up to being old and Southern. But that changed the day she got sick. It was midsummer, hot and wet, and Grandma barely stirred from bed. Feverish and trembling, she whispered over and over, "The chicken, baby. I didn't make the chicken. He'll be hungry, he'll wander, and if he wanders, he'll take what he finds." At first, none of us knew what she meant. Then Jackson's face went pale. "She's talking about Blackjaw," he said, voice low, like speaking the name too loud might call him up from the tree line. That was when I understood. Feeding him wasn't just a ritual. It was the only thing keeping him tethered, the only thing keeping his hunger from turning toward us, or worse, the town. So, we made the chicken. Naomi was the first to move, her hands shaking as she sprinkled salt and pepper, like she'd seen Grandma do 100 times. Jackson hovered close, spooning hot juices over the bird, his face set and serious, like this was the most important thing he'd ever done. I fumbled with the twine, clumsy but careful, binding the legs just the way Grandma had shown me years ago. Even little Lee wanted to help. He tried to lift the pan, but it was too heavy. The metal clattered, and for one awful second we all froze, listening to the silence outside. Finally, we steadied ourselves and carried the chicken together, 4 pairs of hands gripping the pan like pallbearers with a coffin. The air seemed heavier the closer we got to the tree line, the cicadas strangled quiet, the woods watching. Grandma shuffled behind us, wrapped in her big quilt, pale and sweating, her voice rasping with authority. "Don't run, no matter what you hear, no matter what you see. You walk back slow." I thought she was just rambling until I saw the dark stretch of trees ahead and felt something waiting. Until we saw him. A shadow rose from the edge of the woods. At first, it was just tall grass moving, then branches cracking, and then he stood up, 8 feet tall, white fur, ears sharp like spears. But it was the eyes that held me, red and slitted like a cat's, but deeper, all business and hungry, maybe even curious by the sight of us. He didn't lunge, didn't growl, just stared. Then he moved his gaze toward Grandma, and she nodded and said, "Take it." Then he reached out, claws longer than butcher knives, and took the chicken, sank those fangs into it like it was nothing. And Grandma, frail and pale, moved to the porch, laughed and said, "Good boy, Blackjaw. Now go on. You're scaring my grandbabies." And he did, turned, just like a man, and walked back into the forest, like he'd been doing it forever. That was the last time we heard Grandma Pearl laugh like that, loud, full of life, straight from her belly. By fall, the her Bible on one side and a quilt she sewed back in '62 on the other. I hated how small she looked, like the bed was swallowing her whole. Then one evening, right as the sun started dipping low and the sky turned gold, she called us all into her room and said, "Help me outside." No hesitation. Jackson and I each took an arm. Naomi brought the chair, and Lee followed close behind, carrying her cane even though she didn't need it anymore. We thought she just wanted some air, but then she stood, trembling like a newborn calf, and whispered, "Don't move sudden, don't scream, don't run." Then she turned to the trees and called out one word, "Blackjaw." The woods answered like thunder. It was like the whole forest rose up at once. Branches cracked, birds scattered, and something massive crashed through the trees. I remember Jackson grabbing Lee's shoulder, Naomi holding her breath, and me just watching Grandma. Then came the roar, deep and long, like the sound of the earth splitting in half. And then he landed right in front of us, Blackjaw. The shadow from that summer stepped into full view under the dying sun. He was taller than I remember, easily 8 feet, maybe more. His frame was monstrous yet lean, covered in a coat of albino fur that gleamed under the moonlight, slick and shifting like wet oil. His head was a nightmare mirror of a German shepherd. Elongated snout, black nose glistening, ears pricked high like daggers. His arms dangled low, ending in hands too human to be paws, but too savage to be hands. Raccoon-like yet grotesquely stretched, each finger tipped with claws long enough to split open a bear's belly. His chest expanded with slow, deliberate breaths, every rise and fall a reminder of the strength coiled inside him. And his eyes, those terrible yellow eyes, burned like lanterns in the dark, fixed on Grandma Pearl with a predator's focus. That's when Lee did something foolish. The boy puffed up his tiny chest and squeaked, "Leave my Grandma Pearl alone." "Hush, baby," Grandma said. Her voice, steady, sharp, commanding, cut the air stronger than it had in weeks. "He's my friend." She lifted a trembling hand, skin stretched thin over bone, and Blackjaw, this nightmare made flesh, lowered himself. His ears flattened against his skull like a scolded hound, his enormous body folded down until he was eye level with her frail frame. When her fingers brushed his fur, he shivered. Then she scratched behind his right ear, and the beast yelped, a sharp, startled sound, so out of place it made my stomach knot. I swear to God, he even stamped his back foot against the dirt like a happy puppy. And I couldn't believe it. For a heartbeat, the world tilted. This towering albino monster acting like some overgrown mutt begging for affection. Lee even let out a nervous laugh, like maybe we weren't in danger after all. But then Blackjaw's head snapped up. His ears twitched. His nostrils flared wide, pulling in the scent of us, of sweat, of fear. The yellow in his eyes shifted, brightened, like fire catching dry leaves. That was when it hit me. He wasn't tame. He wasn't safe. Grandma Pearl was the only tether holding him back. Without her hand, without her voice, there'd be nothing between us and the thing crouched in the dirt. The woods pressed in around us, heavy and silent, like they were holding their breath. I swear I heard his claws gouge the earth when his gaze slid past Grandma and onto me, onto Naomi, onto little Lee. His breath came rougher now, faster, like hunger pressing through the thin veil of restraint. Grandma didn't stop scratching, didn't stop whispering to him in that low, steady rhythm. "Easy, baby, easy now." Her words weren't for us. They were the chains binding him. That's when I realized the truth, cold and sharp as a blade in my chest. If she ever faltered, if she ever failed to feed him, to soothe him, Blackjaw wouldn't just wander, he might feed on us. And in that moment, standing at the tree line with his eyes crawling over my skin, I knew the puppy act was nothing more than a mask, one breath away from breaking. That thing, whatever he was, could have ripped through a truck like it was paper. But there he was, curled at Grandma's feet, soaking in her touch like a house pet begging for affection. The sight made my stomach twist. Beasts like him didn't kneel. They conquered. Then Grandma leaned closer, her lips trembling, and whispered, "Blackjaw, these are my grandbabies. Watch over them, because I don't think I can anymore." For a long, awful silence, nothing happened. No growl, no howl, no reassurance, just those molten red eyes staring at us, one after the other, weighing us the way a butcher sizes up a cut of meat. Then he moved, slow, deliberate. He circled us, nostrils flaring as he breathed us in, not like a man memorizing faces, but like an animal etching our scent into the marrow of his memory. Our fear, our blood, our bond. It felt like a claiming, like we'd been marked. When he rose again, it was different. His spine stretched, his chest expanded. He seemed taller, broader, charged with something we couldn't see. He turned back to Grandma Pearl, and the sound that rumbled out of him wasn't a growl, but a huff, deep, low, almost reverent, like a vow only she could understand. And then it happened. Grandma's body folded, slow and soft, like she'd been holding herself together for this moment alone, for his promise. Her quilt slipped from her shoulders as she went limp, and Blackjaw caught her, not with claws or hunger, but with a gentleness that didn't belong to a monster. He cradled her in arms meant to destroy, head bowed low, ears flat, as if mourning. But even then, as I watched that beast hold her like something precious, one truth crawled cold into my bones. We had no way of knowing if his vow meant protection or possession. He cradled her like she weighed nothing, like she was precious, and carried her back inside, laid her in her bed, covered her with her favorite quilt. I don't remember him leaving. I don't remember what time it was or what we said next, because I couldn't stop crying. That night we slept on the floor beside her room, all of us, Jackson with his face buried in his arms, Naomi curled up beside Lee, who clutched Grandma's old scarf like it still held her heartbeat. And me? I stared at the tree line, worried, not just about the pain of losing her, but about what came next. Who would take care of us? Would someone come and split us up? And what about the trust fund? Would it matter? But more than anything, I couldn't stop wondering, would Blackjaw really come back? 2 whole days passed we were trying to decide where to bury her, but that problem was solved when Blackjaw came back. He appeared at the back door on all fours, massive even like that, his shoulders wide as the frame, his fur black and slick with dew. He didn't growl, didn't howl, just looked at us. Then he lifted his clawed hand and motioned toward Grandma's room. Lee opened the door first. Blackjaw ducked low and crept through the hall, his claws tapping against the wood floor, slow and respectful. When he entered Grandma Pearl's bedroom, we followed him halfway, but stopped at the door. We heard 2 sharp pops, like bones snapping. Then he stood up, not hunched, tall, 8 feet of grief and reverence. Then, without a sound, he slid his arms beneath Grandma's mattress and lifted the whole thing, frame and all, like it weighed no more than feathers. We followed him, out the back door, past the chicken coop and the old stump Jackson used to split wood on, past the fence and into the edge of the woods, right near her rose garden. There was already a hole waiting. He had dug it, deep, neat, with claw marks carved into the dirt walls. Blackjaw laid her down gently, like she might still wake up, Then, using both hands, he began to cover her, fistful by fistful, earth falling like soft rain, and when it was done, he sat back on his haunches. He lifted his head to the trees and let out a howl. It wasn't like before. It wasn't wild or warning. It was pain, long, broken, and heavy with something ancient, something sacred. The woods themselves seemed to bow in grief, their silence settling over us like a black funeral shroud. I felt it in my bones, deep and cold. We all did. Even Naomi cried, and she never cried. Not since the crash. Between the trees, the air shifted, thick, reverent, and watchful. Grandma Pearl's voice came back to me, telling the old stories of Anubis, the jackal-headed god who walked beside the newly dead, leading them through the darkness to the underworld. And there stood Blackjaw, framed in the shadows, albino white fur rippling, red eyes burning like twin lanterns in the gloom. He did not howl. He did not move. He simply stood guard, silent as eternity. That day, I believed he was her escort, her guardian across the veil. After that, none of us spoke. We just turned and walked back to the house, each step carrying the weight of something too heavy to be our reality. So we started pretending. Pretending like Grandma was still there. Pretending we weren't alone in this world. Pretending we weren't broken. I made sure everyone got up on time. We did the chores, made our beds, cooked our meals. I started using Grandma's recipe cards like scripture. Fried chicken Tuesdays, biscuits every Saturday. We even started making Blackjaw's chicken again. We figured if he kept his promise, we should keep our end too. When school started back, I made sure we got on the bus like nothing had changed. Jackson kept his grades up. Naomi stopped talking back to teachers. Even Lee, who could barely sit still before, started listening better. Because I told them the truth, plain and simple. If anybody finds out we're alone, they'll split us up. They'll take us away. So we pretended to the school, to neighbors, to ourselves. At night, we'd see Blackjaw near the tree line, watching. Never close, never threatening, just there. A silent shadow making sure we made it one more day. And for a while, we made it work. But luck don't last forever. It was a Tuesday when Jenny at the grocery store started asking questions. Nosy heifer. Always smiling with too many teeth, working the checkout line at Lacey's Market like she ran the whole county. "Now where's your grandma been hiding?" she asked, bagging our milk like she wasn't pressing for a funeral invitation. "Ain't seen her in a month." I said she was busy, church stuff, prayer meetings, quilting. She gave me that sideways smile. Tell her Jenny said hey. I knew then she wasn't gonna let it go. 3 days later, I looked out the window and saw Jenny's beat-up sedan creeping down the dirt road to our farm. She parked bold, like she had a reason, and started looking around, peeking toward the coop, the porch, the back acres where Grandma's rose garden still bloomed. I didn't answer the door when she knocked, didn't say a word when she circled the house twice, but the jig was up. CPS came that Friday. 2 of them, white shirts, sunglasses, clipboards full of concern. I wanted to fight. I really did, but I knew if I did, he might come. Blackjaw. If he saw someone dragging us off that land, he might rip them in two. And if that happened, more would come. Not just social workers, not just cops, feds, hunters, people with guns and reasons and no care for legends. So I told Jackson, Naomi, and Lee the truth. We go quiet. For him, for us. I swear I won't let anyone split us up. They cried, even Jackson, who tried to hide it. By 7 p.m., we were officially part of the system. Trash bags of clothes in the back of a county van, stomachs hollow, hearts numb. We bounced for a while. 2 homes in 3 months. One family was nice but too small to keep all of us. Another one smoked inside and yelled too much. Then came the Cutters, from Jackson, Mississippi, Earl and Raylene. White couple in their 30s, clean boots, church smiles, the kind that looked too perfect on paper. They had a big ranch-style house, 7 bedrooms, 5 bathrooms, even a trampoline in the backyard. Said they wanted all 4 of us. No splitting. No separation. They had a 12-year-old son, Calvin. Red hair, freckled face, always squinting like he was trying to figure out if you were worth his time. And me? After fighting to keep us together for so long, I almost felt relief. I should have known better. When CPS dropped us off, Earl and Raylene Cutter were all smiles. Smiles with too many teeth. Hugs that felt rehearsed. "You kids are just precious," Raylene gushed, rubbing Lee's head like he was a puppy. Earl clapped Jackson on the back so hard it made him stumble. As soon as the county car disappeared down the long dirt road, those smiles vanished like smoke. "All right," Earl said, tone flat. "Let's get this straight. You don't run this house. We do." Raylene pointed toward the hallway. 2 bedrooms, girls in one, boys in the other. Hang your clothes up. Be outside in 1 minute. We obeyed. What choice did we have? I thought maybe there'd be dinner. Instead, they lined us up by the shed. Raylene stood there holding a green garden hose, the kind with rusted metal at the tip. Earl nodded, and she turned it on. Ice-cold water blasted us in the chest. We gasped, shivering, arms crossed to protect ourselves. "You don't deserve clean clothes," Raylene screamed over the water. "You're not special. You're lucky we even took you in." She marched up to me, eyes wild, and ripped my shirt right off. I covered myself as best I could, shaking so hard I thought my bones might snap. When the hosing finally stopped, she threw a bundle at our feet. Potato sacks. Actual potato sacks. "Put those on. Now!" No one moved. Naomi's lips were trembling. Lee had started to whimper. "Now!" Earl barked. We dressed in silence, the wet fabric sticking to our skin like shame. Then they led us to the shed in the back corner of the yard. "This is where you'll sleep," Earl said. It wasn't a bedroom. It was a prison. 4 metal cots, concrete floor, reinforced walls, no windows, a barred doorway like something out of a zoo. When they shut the door, it clicked like the end of the world. I held it together until Naomi whispered, "Why are they doing this?" Then I broke. We all did. I curled around Lee and Naomi. Jackson sat on the edge of the cot, fists clenched like he wanted to punch a hole through the steel. We cried in silence, afraid our tears might wake something worse. Eventually, sleep found us, not because we were at peace, but because we had nothing left. But that night, I stared at the ceiling and made a promise. This wouldn't be the end of us. The Cutters were monsters, not the kind in movies, not even the kind that lived in the woods. Worse. They dragged us out of the shed at dawn the next day, barefoot, still in our damp potato sacks. "Get in there and scrub the house," Raylene barked. Earl pointed to the driveway. "You two, clean the cars, inside and out." That's when it hit me. We weren't foster kids. We were slaves, child slaves, ages 13 to 5. I tried to stay strong for my siblings, but inside, I was boiling. And I hated the way Earl looked at Jackson, the way he talked about him when he thought we weren't listening. "Give him a year," I heard him mutter once. "He'll be prime then." Jackson didn't understand yet, but I did, just like I understood Raylene's intentions with me. She made me help her get dressed in the morning, pulled me close, grabbed my head, licked my face. Once, she whispered, "I'm gonna turn you out soon enough, sweet girl." I wanted to vomit, but I held it in, because Lee needed me, Naomi needed me, Jackson needed me. We somehow made it a month. I still don't know how. Whenever someone came to visit, neighbors, caseworkers, church folk, they let us put on our real clothes and paraded us around the house like happy little puppets. We smiled. We said thank you. We said yes, ma'am, and yes, sir. Because if we slipped, we bled. Wire hangers, broomsticks, belts. Lee got it the worst. He was just 5, small, clumsy, always dropping something or forgetting a step. He didn't mean to, but they didn't care. Jackson looked out for him, took hits meant for his little brother more than once. Then one night, Lee knocked over a lamp while scrubbing the living room floor. Earl dragged him outside by the collar, said, "Only way he gets out of this beating is if Jackson takes it for him." I saw it in his eyes. That wasn't a punishment. It was a test. I knew what he wanted. I knew what he was about to do. I didn't think. I didn't plan. I just grabbed a brick from the side of the shed and cracked it across Earl's skull before he could lay a hand on my brother. He screamed and ran into the house, blood pouring from his scalp. Raylene was furious, but not at him, more for what he tried to do. She scolded him. "You idiot," she hissed, her eyes flashing. "Do you want everyone remembering what happened to the last boy? He was raped, and then he vanished. They still whisper about it. You can't draw that kind of attention again." Her voice dropped lower, each word heavy with venom. "You wait. You wait until they're old enough to date, old enough to say yes. Then you can take what you want, but not before. Do you understand me?" They starved us for 3 days after that, locked us in the shed and fed us nothing but tap water and rage. I remember that third night because they forgot to lock the door properly. Lee was the one who tried to escape. He snuck out barefoot, belly growling so loud I thought it would give him away. He ran through the yard, past the back fence, toward the trees. Under the pale moonlight, he finally collapsed, body too weak to keep moving. He hit the dirt hard, and then he heard it. Footsteps, big ones. Then a low growl, not like Earl's angry growl. This was deeper, wilder, older, something that belonged to the woods and the night and the blood running through us. Lee rolled onto his back, blinking up at the stars, and through the blur of tears and hunger, he saw red eyes in the dark, and white fur, and yellow claws, and something that made the earth feel small beneath it. Blackjaw. He had come. Cal was up in his room. He must have seen Lee run, his tiny frame darting through the field, barefoot and starving, a shadow under the moonlight. Calvin Cutter didn't waste time calling for help. He just grabbed a golf club from the porch and chased after him. Maybe he thought it'd be funny. Maybe he thought he could drag him back and play hero. Maybe he was just as sick as his parents, but he didn't expect what he found. Because Lee wasn't alone. When Calvin reached the tree line, golf club gripped tight, ready to strike. He froze. Lee was cradled in the arms of a giant albino dog man. Blackjaw. He wasn't just a dog man. He was the wrong kind, a negative image burned out of the legend, like someone had dragged the creature up from a nightmare instead of the woods, and that made him scarier, more wild, more unnatural. He was massive, as big as a grizzly, his white fur patchy in places, exposing slick pink leathery skin stretched too tight over the muscle beneath. His head was broad and sharp like a monstrous shepherd's, but those eyes, those blazing red eyes, glowed like live coals sunk in a skull too aware of us. Drool spilled in thick ropes from his jaws, clinging to yellowed fangs that looked more like daggers than teeth. And his hands, God help us, were worse, long gnarled fingers tipped with claws the color of old ivory, yellow and sharp, curling like sickles meant for harvesting flesh. They flexed as he held Lee carefully. I could only imagine what it looked like, my little brother in the arms of that thing. It was like staring into a mirror smashed and reassembled wrong, a reflection warped in broken glass. Every instinct screamed predator, but Blackjaw held Lee as though he were something worth guarding, protector and destroyer bound together in one nightmare form. Lee tilted his tear-streaked face upward from the safety of that monstrous chest. His lips, cracked and trembling, parted just enough to whisper two words, "Get him." Calvin's grip tightened on the golf club. His breath came hard and ragged, but still he raised it high, knuckles bone white. Blackjaw didn't flinch. He moved, faster than sight, faster than thought, one monstrous blur of white fur and yellow claws. The swipe cut the air with a deadly whoosh. Too sharp, too sudden to believe. Calvin staggered back, eyes wide, the club slipping from his hand. For a heartbeat, it seemed like nothing had happened, until the sound came, that awful, awful, wet sound. The sucking, slopping noise of his insides spilling free. A red curtain opened down the length of his torso, from his sternum to gut. His intestines uncoiled in a steaming heap at his feet, slick and writhing like snakes, desperate to escape the ruin of his body. His knees buckled. He collapsed into them with a squelching bloody spray that covered dirt and grass. Calvin's scream split the woods like a scared, wounded animal, shrill enough to send birds and small critters running into the night. But Blackjaw wasn't finished. No, he wasn't even starting. With terrifying care, he lowered Lee to the ground, one clawed finger brushing across the boy's forehead, tender, almost fatherly. Then he turned, slow and deliberate, back toward Calvin. Calvin lurched backward, his legs unsteady, staggering from tree to tree as though the forest itself pressed in on him. His breath rasped, shallow and broken, and when he spun around for help, he found only Lee sprawled across the dirt. For a heartbeat, hope flickered, until Lee stirred, lifting his head with a feeble groan. Calvin's eyes widened, not at Lee, but at the way his friend's gaze tilted upward, past him, toward the upper branches. Panic surged. Calvin clutched at his stomach, blood slicked between his fingers, his strength leaking out as fast as the life inside him. He forced his head up, dread in his eyes as he craned his neck upward. From above, darkness shifted. An albino furred hand, long, clawed, and inhuman, descended through the lightless branches. It closed around his face with cruel finality. Before a scream could escape his lips, Calvin was wrenched upward, vanishing into the black-leaved canopy, swallowed whole by the trees. The sound of what came next didn't still haunts me. I didn't see it. None of us did. But we heard it. The shed walls shuddered with every impact, carrying the sounds into our bones. The tearing of flesh, the crunch of bones snapping like brittle sticks, the guttural snarls of a beast loosed from its leash. Calvin's screams grew ragged, then wet, then thin, until finally there was nothing but the sound of chewing, of meat being pulled from bone, and the silence that followed. And even then I knew Blackjaw wasn't our guardian. He was revenge and savagery leashed. Naomi covered her ears. Jackson looked at me, his face pale. "What's that?" I didn't answer, because I already knew. It was the sound of a promise being kept. Blackjaw tore Calvin Cutter apart like a piece of lumber thrown into a wood chipper, and when it was done, when there was nothing left but silence and blood-soaked grass, he walked Lee back to us, holding his tiny hand like a father would. No words, no roars. He stopped outside the shed, ripped the door off with one claw, and gently pushed Lee inside. Then he looked at me, right at me, and in that moment I knew. I looked at Blackjaw and nodded. "Payback time, big guy." And I swear to God. He smiled, not a snarl, not a trick of the light. A smile, the kind that says, I've been waiting for this too. Jackson saw it. Naomi did too. Even Lee, still weak, still bruised, smiled back like he knew everything was about to change. I'll be back, I told them, with food. Then I turned and walked toward the Cutter house, slow at first, then faster, loud on purpose. I slammed the screen door open, let it bang against the wall, rattled the kitchen drawers, knocked over a chair. I wanted them to wake up. And they did. I heard Earl's boots hit the floor, Raylene shouting, "What the hell's going on?" Doors opened, feet stormed down the hall. I grabbed what I could from the fridge, lunch meat, a loaf of bread, 2 apples, and made sure they saw me holding it. "There she goes!" Earl bellowed. "You little thief! I'm gonna skin you alive!" Raylene added her chorus of cruelty. "Ungrateful little rats! Wild animals, that's what you are." I ran back to the shed, fast, on purpose, because I wanted them to chase me. I reached the door and dropped to my knees, handed food to Jackson, gave half an apple to Naomi, and made sure Lee got the biggest piece of bread. He needed it most. Their voices were getting closer, angrier. They were coming. I stood up, not afraid anymore, just done. "They get money for each of us," I shouted, my voice cutting through the dark. "Food stamps, foster checks, assistance, and we've been sleeping on concrete." They caught up fast, boots crunching gravel as their shadows loomed over me. Raylene was first. She swung wild, her palm cracking against my cheek so hard my ears rang. My knees buckled, but I forced myself upright. Earl was right there with her, his bulk blocking out the streetlight. He leaned close, breath sour, voice low and venomous. "You think you can steal and mouth off to us and walk away? Girl, we'll beat you till you don't got nothing left." Raylene sneered, circling me like a vulture. "Better beg now, before we decide to make it worse." My jaw ached, the sting spreading hot across my face, but I didn't flinch. I stared straight into her eyes, teeth gritted, blood thick in my mouth. "You think this is over?" My voice came out steady, sharper than I meant. "You better pray I don't get back up, 'cause when I do, I'm coming for you, both of you, and you will suffer." Raylene barked a laugh, mean and high, and raised her hand again, ready to make good on her threat. Earl moved in, shoulders squared, menace radiating off him like heat. And then the air shifted. A hush fell, heavy and unnatural. Even the night creatures seemed to retreat. They didn't see it yet, but I felt it behind me, the weight of something vast, something watching. And when Raylene froze mid-swing, eyes bulging, I knew what she saw. Blackjaw, not crouched, not hiding, but standing tall, monstrous, terrible. His red eyes glared past me, locked on them, his claws flexed like blades aching to be used. And when his roar ripped open the night, their bravado shattered like glass. Raylene stumbled backward. Earl reached for something in his pocket. Probably a knife, maybe worse. Earl's hand twitched at his side. I saw it too late. The glint of metal catching the porch light. A gun. He jerked it up, fumbling to level it at Blackjaw. But Blackjaw was faster. In a blur of white fur and pink flesh, he lunged. The pistol never cleared Earl's chest before a set of yellow claws carved down, neat and merciless. Earl screamed, high, guttural, raw, just as his hand came away from his arm in a spray of blood. Fingers still clenched tight around the gun, twitching as they hit the dirt. Blackjaw's other hand slammed into Earl's chest, knocking him flat on his back with a bone-cracking thud. Then the Dogman hunched over him, jaws dripping scarlet strings of saliva that hissed as they struck Earl's shirt. His fangs, long, yellow, hungry, hovered inches above Earl's face, each breath a furnace blast of rot and meat. Earl thrashed, gurgling in panic, the bloody stump of his wrist spraying across the dirt. And still, Blackjaw waited, not killing, not yet. His red eyes burned with something worse than hunger, zeal, a twisted kind of judgment, as if savoring the moment before execution. I felt my own hand rise, trembling but steady. My voice cut through the frenzy, raw but sharp. Hold on! I didn't look at him. I didn't need to. His breath was a hot, heavy steam rising from his mouth, his claws scraping the dirt inches from Earl's face. Let me ask them something, I said to Blackjaw, my voice low but steady. Then I turned to them, Raylene trembling with fury, and Earl pinned under 8 feet of white fur and pink leathery muscle. Choose, I told them, each word like a stone dropped into silence. Confess to the abuse, confess to the fraud, turn yourselves in, face the law. I raised a hand and pointed at the nightmare crouched above Earl. Or face death itself. Raylene hissed through clenched teeth. You wouldn't dare. Earl, panicked and sweating, screamed up at her. Shut up, woman. Wrong move. I didn't even give the command. Blackjaw moved on his own. His head snapped down, fangs flashing yellow in the moonlight. One bite, one sickening crunch, and Earl's scream became a gurgle. Blood sprayed in a crimson arc, steaming in the night air. Blackjaw ripped into him, tearing flesh from bone with the zeal of a predator set free. Raylene shrieked, No, no, but I caught her by the hair and yanked her head forward. Watch, I snarled, forcing her eyes open to see the ruin of her husband. Blackjaw's jaws worked methodically, gore dripping from his chin, bones cracking like dry sticks. Earl's legs twitched once, twice, then stilled, then the beast turned, slow, purposeful, his burning red eyes fixed on Raylene. He rose to his full height, towering, drool swinging in long strings from his fangs. His claws flexed, carving gouges in the wood beneath his feet. I leaned close to her ear, my grip iron in her hair. He can kill you in less than the time it takes to scream. Choose now. Blackjaw took one heavy step toward her, then another, 2 feet away. The ground shook under him. Raylene broke. Her body buckled, sobs racking her chest as she fumbled into her pocket. With shaking hands, she yanked out her phone, punched the numbers, and screamed into the receiver. I did it, she wailed. We hurt those kids. We starved them. My husband, God forgive me. Please, come, please. By the time the sirens cut through the night, her voice was ragged and broken. 4 cruisers rolled up fast, tires crunching gravel, a canine barking mad in the back. Sheriff Mike Shepard was first out, his boots heavy on the dirt. He looked at the blood pooled across the porch, the shredded body in the yard, the claw marks that split the wood. Then his eyes found us. He asked our names one by one, his eyes lingering on each of us a little too long, like he was trying to line us up with faces from another time. Then he asked who our parents were, as if he was sorting through the puzzle pieces in his head. When he finished his call to CPS, he turned suddenly, snapping his fingers as if the memory had finally clicked into place. You're Pearlie Mae's grandkids? He asked. I nodded, my breath steady despite the stink of blood and death clinging to the night. Yes, sir? He took off his hat, ran a hand through thinning gray hair, and let out a long breath. His gaze held on us, heavy with sorrow and something deeper, an old memory unearthed. Me and your grandma, and your grandpa, we were thick as thieves, he said softly. All through high school. I remember one spring, just before graduation, we were fishing down by the quarry when we found what we thought was a stray pup. Scrawny little thing, pink-skinned, patches of white fur. Albino. Abandoned. Your grandma scooped it right up, said she'd raise it. He paused, his eyes shifting toward Earl's mangled remains before the coroners moved in. But it wasn't no ordinary puppy. No, sir. By the time she married your grandpa and they settled on that ranch, it had grown into something else entirely. I'll never forget what she told me. He'll protect what's mine. If I recall right, she named him Blackjaw. Said once he could stand on two legs, he never stopped watching over her family. His words hung in the air, and then his gaze drifted past us, toward the trees, and there, just beyond the wash of headlights, we saw it, the shadow, tall, motionless, watching, Blackjaw, silent as the grave, yet promising more than any law or blood oath ever could. Still standing, still waiting, still there. She wasn't lying, the sheriff whispered. His voice trembled, but not from fear, reverence. He's still watching, and seeing how you all are practically family, I'm gonna make sure you're cared for. Your grandparents were two of the best people I've ever known, so from this day on, I'll take care of you. The rest is a blur, happy flashes only. Raylene being dragged off in cuffs, wailing like a banshee. Lee finally eating until his belly hurt. Naomi curled against Jackson in the back seat of a cruiser, asleep at last. And Sheriff Mike? He made good on his word. He adopted us himself, gave us a home, gave Blackjaw a place too, because we weren't just 4 kids anymore. We were a pack, and Blackjaw, he was family. That was 22 years ago. We've all grown. We've all healed. Mostly. I became a lawyer. Civil rights and abuse cases, mostly. Couldn't stand to watch kids fall through the cracks like we almost did. Jackson's the VP of a financial firm up in Chicago. Naomi turned her love for numbers into something bigger. She's a theoretical physicist now, chasing black holes and bending light. And Lee? He's a captain in the United States Air Force. We each have 2 kids each now. 8 cousins raised like siblings. Loud, smart, wild in the best ways, spouses who support us and stand by us. And every year, no matter where we are, no matter how busy life gets, we come home, back to Hazelhurst, Mississippi. Back at the old house where we grew up with Sheriff Mike, the years have settled into the walls like dust and sunlight. Mike is in his 80s now, slower in step, his hands trembling sometimes, but still gentle, still wise, still welcoming. A better foster dad we couldn't have asked for. He was our savior, too. In his quiet, steadfast way, he made sure Naomi and I had prom dresses and wedding gowns. And when the day came, he walked us down the aisle with pride. He taught Jackson and Lee what it meant to be black men, how to stand tall with dignity no one could take from them. Because of him, we all learned to carry our heads high, no matter what shadows trailed us. Every year on his birthday, we gather at the house. We cook. We laugh. We dance barefoot on the back porch while lightning bugs drift through the trees like sparks of memory. For a while, it feels like nothing bad ever touched us. But tradition runs deeper than celebration. When the cake is gone and the stories are told, when the children are finally asleep, the adults slip outside. We walk together to the tree line with a fresh-baked chicken, prepared the way Grandma Pearl always made it. We set it down in the clearing, the night air thick with cicadas and silence. And then we wait, like clockwork. He comes, Blackjaw, maybe older, maybe not. His silence makes it hard to tell, but still massive, still terrible, still bound to us. His white fur ripples in the moonlight, his pink skin catching the glow in unsettling flashes. He steps close, red eyes burning low and steady, and sniffs the air, pulling in every scent, old and new, as if he's memorizing us all over again. I raise a hand, scratch behind his right ear the way Grandma once did. For the briefest moment, he leans into it, almost tender. Then comes that sound, sharp and sudden, the stamp of his foot, pounding the dirt like a warning drum. And then he slips away. No sound, no farewell, just swallowed by the trees, the forest closing around him like he was never there. Blackjaw, the monster who saved a family and never stopped watching. I never really thanked him. I don't know if he could understand, but if it wasn't for him, I wouldn't be able to look out for my family the way I did. Thank you, Blackjaw.